Get the coffee show. You're watching Real Simple News with Coffee on Wednesday, August 5th. I am your host, Kale McCullough, and in today's top batshit crazy story that would only come from 2020, Facebook removes post by Trump for first time over COVID-19 misinformation. This is from Fake News Week. Facebook removed the post which featured Donald Trump's claiming that children are almost immune from COVID-19. Yeah. Woo! That one's a doozy. All right. Social media platform Facebook removed a post from Donald Trump on Wednesday claiming it violated the company's... Oh, shoot. Well, given that it is fake news from Facebook, I'm not going to give them any money. Here. Let's get through the coffee here.
This is the proof. It's fake news week. I am definitely correct here. These are the numbers from the CDC as of the first 103,339 deaths. And when you count them up, the deaths under the age of 15 are 13 plus 5 plus 8. And when you add those up together, which I know is very hard for Democrats to do, it comes to 26. So let's do the thing that the leftist scientists are so resistant to doing, because 86% of scientists are Democrats. And because of this, it causes them to look at all of their data through skewed political beliefs. So what is 26 divided by 103? 339. And woo, that's little itty bitty. So 26, that's probably not. So hold on. Let's take that number and then this one. And times it by 100. Okay. So 0.025% of the deaths were under the age of 15.
Grab the coffee. So as we can see, Newsweek is fake news because I shred them to pieces over fake news all the time. They have a gold standard on the News Guard.
So if you look up Newsweek on the internet, it will show you that Newsweek has all of the check marks ticked. And as you can tell, it's obviously fake news garbage, and they want you to pay for it. And so obviously you could see that the organizations where their business model is built around putting out lots of news articles for free for you to click on that lure you in to pay, obviously we could see that these sources of news are complete garbage.
And we can also see that the fact that most of these scientists are, in fact, Democrats. This definitely goes to show you that they have a heterodoxy, they engage in groupthink, and it's a monoculture, which is incredibly dangerous because Fauci's spitting this stuff off. Fauci's spitting off this shit all the time.
You got this dude telling you to wear face masks. Okay. This is crazy. walking around with the face mask. Okay, so we've done the numbers on the show. I'm not going to redo numbers. There's almost 50,000 suicides in the U.S. per year, like 49,000. In March, when the pandemic lockdown hit, we had a 356% increase in suicides. When you run that increased rate over time for a year, you get more deaths than COVID. Also, there are 6 strands of COVID. Not all of them will kill you. The reason why a coronavirus is called a common cold. It's not a new virus. SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus. This is the one that one of the strands is a pandemic. The other ones are nature's medicine, because if you get these strands, the less deadly ones, they will act as a vaccine. So when you get a vaccine for SARS-CoV-2, it'll have probably different versions the way it works, you got leukocytes, they're white blood cells. They detect chemical signatures in your blood, and then they come and they eat the cell. And so one of the ways that this is my favorite thing about marijuana, because it's a endocannabinoid, or no, it's a cannabinoid, sorry. Your cells have endocannabinoids, and endocannabinoids are used by your white blood cells to flag down the cells, cancer cells, in order to have the leukocytes eat them. It's amazing how that works. One of the coolest things in the entire universe besides the human brain. But this is what is happening with the vaccine. The vaccine is allowing you to detect the chemical signatures of SARS-CoV-2. And so when you're exposed to a form of SARS-CoV-2 that is not deadly, such as when you have the flu, if you're exposed to different types of flu, it makes your risk of dying from flu go down, which is why young people are at higher risk of dying from the flu as opposed to old people. So, but this is the opposite for SARS-CoV-2, because it causes SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. And this is an autoimmune disorder that causes your leukocytes to attack the wrong cells because they're getting the wrong chemical signatures. They're getting the wrong chemical signatures because you fought a bunch of different kinds of infections in your life, and your leukocytes are attacking the wrong organs in your body. They're not attacking the actual cells. They're attacking everything. So this is why the young people are immune almost from SARS, because their bodies aren't having immune system responses. So we could see the news is fake. This Real Simple News is an open source news organization. I'm doing this for free. I've received $0 from anyone to do this. But you can contribute on GitHub. This is issue number 61. You can find us at github.com/Real Simple News. You'll find more archives here coming in the future. It's easiest to find us at realsimplenews.net/issue 61 for this show. Down here, you can find a donate button where you can make a donation to Real Simple News or our fact-checking service, WikiSpy, which is still in creation, but it is a open source fact-checking service built on WikiSpy, a tool to monitor wiki-like sites for tampering by hostile actors and political bias. Basically, it's my AI project to attempt to fit Wikipedia into 1 gig of RAM plus an infinite cache. But we're going to be using it to spot political bias on Wikipedia by training it through the contributions made by the Wikipedia author to detect the bias of the author and to detect the source of the misinformation compared to China China's rigged propaganda Wikipedia. Let's see, what day is it today? Today is actually the 6th. But these news stories are for August 5th. In our next news story from Hacker News, there is a hackathon and a challenge to build a new terminal. There's a offer for a $20,000 investment. This is from Pioneer.app. A terminal hasn't changed much since 1980. Every other aspect of your workflow is radically different, especially in the decades last decades, we've seen companies transform industries with the advent of collaborative software, Figma, GitHub, G Suite, Excel, and more. We do expect real-time collaboration to dominate markets as pandemic runs its course and forces people and businesses into online masses. A entire frontier is now wide open to ambitious engineers, and I'm going to be joining this hackathon. So if you want to help me out, you can go to github.com/Kabuki Starship /script2. And this is the basis here for the Wiki Spy. We're going to fit it up in 1 gigabyte of RAM for it's like a zip file, and we're going to unpack it with neural nets up in your GPU using an infinite cache to make it ripping fast. And we have a really cool console. This console is the best console you've ever seen in your life, and it has one of the fastest text processing libraries in the world. In this next news article from Hacker News, researchers demonstrate the ability to fuse atoms inside of room temperature metals. Whoa, holy shit. What? Am I seeing that? Like, this is real? Let's see. It's coming from a hacker. You never know. Whoa, it's from spectrum.ieee.org. It's legit. Whoa, holy shit. What are we about to see? This is revolutionary. This is groundbreaking. Room temperature fusion. This is not how I am not reading this. NASA researchers demonstrated the ability to fuse atoms inside of room temperature metals. Nuclear fusion is hard to do. It requires extremely high densities and pressures to force the nuclei of elements like hydrogen and helium to overcome their natural inclination to repel each other. On Earth, fusion experiments require large, expensive equipments to pull off. I remember growing up with these. My mom's fiance was a nuclear physicist, so I used to go into the labs as a child and play with these lasers. And whenever I would do something wrong, bad, I would be forced to write physics research papers. I don't remember anything about it because it was all grad level shit. It was like, I don't know anything that's going on in here. But researchers at NASA's Glenn Research Facility have now demonstrated a method of inducing nuclear fission without building a massive stellarator or a tokamak. In fact, they needed a bit of metal, some hydrogen, and electron accelerator. The team believes their method, called lattice confinement fusion, could be a potential new power source for deep space missions. They've published their results in 2 papers in Physics Review C. Here's the journals.apps.org PRC, and then you search for, I don't know how you get to it, but you can find it at the issue ticket on GitHub. In this next article from New York Post, Biden campaign knocked on a grand total of 0 doors this week, while Trump hit 1 million. You heard that right. Mr. Magoo forgot to do the door-to-door. This is what you can expect from Mr. Magoo if you elect Democrats. It's not going to change. They don't have any new ideas. The only thing they can win on is that the white man is bad, and then they put up white males for candidates. the Trump and Biden campaigns are taking wildly different approaches to canvassing voters amid the pandemic, according to a new report. Volunteers for President Trump's re-election effort say they have knocked on 1 million doors in the past week, while the Biden campaign has knocked on 0 and has no intention of doing so. Well, at this point in time, seems as though he's like, no, that was my strategy. No, we're just going online this year. That's the win, right? Right. That's the win. You just make it so that Mr. Magoo doesn't have to debate Donald Trump, the king of memes, because you know the internet is going to be aflame from all of the triggering from the memes, from the meme experts on the right. The left is about to get a thrashing when it comes to digital art and memery. The Trump volunteers for President Trump's re-election effort say they knocked on 1 million doors in the past week. Oh, this is saying the same thing over and over again. They are counting on phone calls and text messages to convince voters to back Biden this November, and seems to be pretty confident in their strategy. I don't know about you, but I get calls from robots all the time. I'm at work and the phone is on silent. It's upside down. Upside down. That way I can't see the phone. This is what a normal person would do. What somebody who is much easier to be brainwashed would do is you would have to call them on the phone, because you are unable to convince them in person. So the only way that you could possibly do this is over the phone with a professional brainwasher, because most of the people who you were going to send door to door, let's be real, probably not going to be the best of the apples. But on the phone, you can find the best people on the telephone to hit as many houses as possible. This is not possible. I used to canvass for the Democrats. I know that this is, and I also used to do telephone surveys. So I know that your money is going to be very much so well spent if you hire someone like me to do a telephone survey, as opposed to hiring someone like me to knock door to door, because there's only so many doors that I can physically go to, and there's X% chance that I'm going to be a bozo. Reading on, it says, Ecoles blamed a lack of enthusiasm for Biden, 77, aka Mr. Magoo, and said the pandemic was an excuse for them to not deploying people onto the streets in battleground countries. And this is because Mr. Magoo is too old to be president, because at his age group, he is at high risk of COVID. So he can't go around engaging with all the people and actually doing the job, because he's Mr. Magoo, and he might forget what he needs to do on that specific given day, or he might get COVID because he's at a specific age where he's at risk of COVID. So for this reason, you should probably vote for Donald Trump, because he's a hell of a lot less of a pussy, and he's done a really, really good job. This next article from the New York Post: activist wearing anti-cop mask says she was kicked off flight because she's black. A Florida blacktivist wearing a mask with a vulgar anti-cop slogan on it claims she was kicked off an American Airlines flight because of her race. I think I got taken off the plane because I'm black, Arleonda Johns told Local10.com. My mask said F-K12 and my shirt said Black Lives Matter. And so I'm not sure whether or not she can read, but the plane said American Airlines. It does not say African American Airlines. So in America, we respect the police and the law. And so we're going to say fuck off to her for hating the cops and move on to somebody who's worth the shit to talk about. Next article from the Daily Mail: Donald Trump calls Black Lives Matter a Marxist group and mocks kneeling athletes. The president phoned into his favorite morning show to discuss the anti-police brutality movement and how it had affected sports around the country. And if you're unaware, there is the Black Lives Matter people are Marxists. So if you look up BLM trained Marxists, we could just do a Twitter search. We could find a video up on Twitter real quick. It just pops up. And then got to go down and find one. They're all over the place. We're going to avoid the YouTube one. And then here we can see Black Lives Matter co-founder
have an ideological frame.
Talking about being a trained Marxist.
This could be a police cruiser, Tom, that you mentioned that is burning right now.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
Flames rip through the lower level of St. Thomas Church.
And as you can see...
All right, this video is crap. I don't know what the fuck that was. I'm sorry. I was avoiding YouTube, but it's for news purposes, so we're allowed to.
He was concerned, or is concerned, that that there's a lack of perhaps.
I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
All right, so where did she get indoctrinated into the savage ideology that is responsible for killing hundreds of millions of people around the globe? She did it at a leftist liberal university. And the reason for this is because back in the 60s, when they had the civil rights movement that was led by the black conservatives, they let the crazy liberals in the white liberals that have always historically caused a lot of problems for the black people, they let those people engage in politics on campus, and it evolved into the student governments. I used to be the secretary of the treasury of my student government at ACSU, hold on, Associated Student Union of LCC, ASLCC. It's been 12 years, so forgive me. And I also volunteered for Osberg. I engaged in this radicalization in the leftist feminazi central of Eugene, Oregon, where people are batshit crazy and they want to kill me for being a Republican because they think Republicans are racist, and they think that it's okay to punch a Nazi, and that a Republican is a racist, and then therefore a racist is the same thing as a Nazi, because Nazis because the KKK used to be Democrats, but then the Democrats turned on them, and then the racist people turned into Republicans for free speech reasons, and then they're like, oh, now the Republicans are racist because the KKK people support Republicans because of free speech. Now you can see how the slippery slope leads into Fruitcakeville, where we now have Black Lives Matter co-founders preaching straight up Marxism, trying to destroy our statues, trying to destroy our historical monuments, our history. Last episode of Real Simple News, that I accidentally had the date mislabeled as today, but that was an accident. That episode, there was a black BLM extremist Democrat who wants to get rid of history classes, ban them because they're racist, because the only history that we should be teaching in America that is 70 some odd percent white. The only history we should be teaching is black history. The white people can't have their own history because it's racist. All y'all people's racist now. And they just think I can just engage in this pattern where I'm just calling other people racist, horrible people, trying to get them fired from work, and then they're not going to face any sort of repercussions from this. This is crazy. When you start canceling people, I got canceled. That's why I'm doing this show. These people don't like you anymore. Once these people don't like you, they're on the other side. When you put enough people into the far right pile by expanding it out of the original definition of the farthest left is the flattest hierarchy, the farthest right is the highest hierarchy, and then they said capitalism somewhere in the middle. That's a lie. That's not true. It's a socialist spectrum, because on the capitalist spectrum, we don't have that hierarchy. But they want, they're cultural Marxists. So they want to take out our institutions because they think the white man's racist. They want us to not enforce our immigration policy because in every other country that's not enforced their immigration policy, their neighbor has typically annexed their territory. If they're larger than them, their neighbor comes and annexes their territory. Right. So you have to have border policies, or you won't have a country, or you will have constant wars between the two countries over the territories. The solution to this is you enforce your border policies so that you do not have standing armies of millions of people that are citizens of another country, because that, quite frankly, is quite terrifying. Luckily, 85% of the guns in the United States belong to the white people. And we're way bigger than them, so they ain't stepping, and they're friends and good family. So we don't have to worry about Mexico. But the fact is that your kids are not racist, and the people that have to deal with this are your children. So if you're saying, I don't want to enforce the border policy because white people are racist, and it's racist to kick them out because I don't know how, I'm just struggling to find how people ever thought this was racist to kick out illegal immigrants. Like, yeah, I understand the people who are in the other country are illegal immigrants, but they're like, we also too have a right to be here. You might think, oh, well, white people took the land from the Native Americans, but the fact is nobody's really native to America because we evolved in Africa, which is a different continent. So humans are not native anywhere. If we want to play that game, the entire world belongs to Africa. And it's the Chinese, it's the Asians came across in the land bridge because they didn't have a wheel. And then when the white man came, they all died from smallpox because they didn't have vaccines that the white man made. And they say that we can't enforce our immigration policy because of something that somebody else did hundreds of years ago. And so therefore we have to then start engaging in cultural Marxism where we destroy statues. In Charlottesville, Virginia, they canceled Thomas Jefferson's birthday celebration. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. I grew up there. I went to Monticello on Thomas Jefferson's birthday on a school field trip almost every year so that we could learn about the evils of slavery and see where the slaves were kept and learn about what a great man Thomas Jefferson was. And they canceled it. Little leftist scumbags canceled it. Our history. This is called cultural Marxism. This is what the Chinese did when the city scum. This is how. So communism comes from the city. Nazism came from the city. In World War II, most of Europe was rural. Most of the USSR was rural. So most of the socialists, of course, there's some of this in the country, but the vast majority of them are in the city. It's city people who want to push their politics out in the country. In the United States, it's the BLM Antifa Nazis doing these Democrat race riots. They are blaming Republicans for being racist, saying it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the biggest threat in the world or something. And as it turns out, they're the socialists. Most of these BLM people out rioting, they're like, oh, because we want equality. They're like, there's high crime, people are underpaid. And why? Why are these people out? They're on food stamps. They don't have fucking jobs. They're socialist. They're preaching Marxism. They're out meeting people, developing networks of cultural Marxists. They want to kill Trump supporters. They want to destroy our cultural history. This is the biggest threat to America in our history. The biggest threat to America is Black Lives Matter Antifa Nazis. Because most people don't understand that the communists actually helped. They might have started fighting with the fascists because they're fascist, or the Nazis were a different type of socialist. They had a hierarchy, but eventually they joined with the Nazis. This article from War History Online that I cover a lot on the show says how communists in Germany allied with Nazis to destroy democracy. I've covered it in detail in prior shows. Just look for the things that have Nazis on them. Because BLM Antifa Nazi cabal explained. These people will not stop once they've learned that they can get whatever they want by blaming the white man for stuff that other people did and for the stuff that they failed, their failures in life, like not getting a good degree in school, not trying well in high school so you could even get to college, so you could even have a chance with the children who did do well in school. But instead, what they want to do is they want to punish the people who did do well. They want to take it from you because you're racist. You don't deserve it. And so now what they want, do I have that up here? I got another article on this subject. I'm just going to move on. In this next article from NPR, parks in non-white areas are half the size of ones in majority white areas, study says. Amid high temperatures and pandemic green spaces are a lifeline, but the new data shows that in low-income and non-white areas are smaller and more crowded than those in high-income white areas. And so they want you to feel bad for the people in the city. Like, feel bad for me. We have less parks. We're so discriminated against. Everything. We get longer prison sentences. They don't tell you they get longer prison sentences because they have 5 times greater violence rate than the white community. And if you have prior offenses, you're going to get a longer prison sentence. Well, no shit. That's not racism. That's called reality. You're like, oh, well, these people, they lived in cities. Like, I'm so oppressed. I live in a big city. I'm at the bottom of the hierarchy of the city. So let me get this straight. You live in a big city where the price of rent is really high. There's high crime. Crime mostly comes from the black people. Or it's hood Democrats. The low income, big city liberals who vote for Democrats. They have low GPAs, high crime rates, high drug abuse rates, and they are blaming Republicans. You know, hood Democrats, honestly, can switch over and be Republicans and then they wouldn't suck. They would be awesome. But when they're Democrats, the thing is the people at the top of the ivory tower, the ivory tower liberals, they will tell you whatever you want to hear to get you to like on the post, watch the ad, buy the product, and vote for them. Typically, the hood Democrats hate these people, such as, for instance, the Black Lives Matter protesters in the Portland war zone who have been engaging in BLM Antifa Nazi Democrat race riots for 65 days straight. Those people hate Ted Wheeler. They've always hated Ted Wheeler. Ted Wheeler has always represented the police that have been using riot control agents on them. They will never like Ted Wheeler. But Ted Wheeler panders to the hood Democrats and the white feminists. This is the other, you got to understand, it's an ivory tower. There's a pyramid going up the ivory tower. At the bottom, you have your street kids, your Antifa. These are your enforcers, the people who will go fuck people up for people. Then above them, you have the hood Democrats. If there's a lot of black people in the city, it's a lot of black people. If there's a lot of Latinos in the city, there's a lot of Latinos in there. If you look at the mix of all the big cities, it's just about equal between the white people, Latinos, and the black people. So there's a good even mix, which makes it not racist to diss on their grades. These people are above the Antifa at the bottom of the pyramid because they are now typically they'll have jobs and the Antifa will be more unemployed. And above these people, you then have your white feminists. White feminists are racist feminists who prioritize white women issues over everyone else's. And so these white feminists are way more likely to get jobs in the ivory tower than hood Democrats. They don't all work in the ivory tower, but they're all trying to move up the top of the ivory tower. And then at the top of the ivory tower, you have your ivory tower liberals who will tell you whatever you want to hear to get you to like the post, watch the ads, buy the product, and vote for him. So they want to tell you, because they're ivory tower liberals, sitting up top of the ivory tower, they're like, oh, this is racism, this is oppression, because you're living in a big city and rent is so high, everything is oppressive. And everybody else who doesn't live in those big cities is looking at you like, why the fuck are you living in a big city, dude? Like, why don't you sell your house and move out of the big city? So that way you aren't at the bottom of the pyramid in the big city. I know this sounds fucking obvious and only an idiot wouldn't be able to understand it. That's because it is. Let's be frank. Big cities suck to live in. We thought they were cool, but the reality of the situation is Eugene is way more dope than your big city. In this next article from the New York Post, women who use marijuana have better orgasms, a study claims. The study involved conducting a survey of 452 ladies who responded to an invitation distributed by a chain of marijuana retail stores. So, as you can see, marijuana is not just good for your mind, it is also good for your vagina. In this next article from the BBC News, Jake Paul FBI SWAT team seizes guns at home of the YouTube star. The social media star is no stranger to controversy and has run-in with law enforcement. So that's about how detailed somebody in another country is going to be able to describe events in the United States. This is why there is so much fake news, because we get stuff like BBC. Everybody wants to report it. And then they get people who are not from the United States, and then they'll just spin you some fluff because they're just trying to get you to click on the ad. But what do these people say about it? A spokeswoman for the FBI said an armed SWAT team carried out the raid, which took place while Jake was not at home. The official would not say the reason, only that the search was related to an investigation officers were seen collecting guns from the property. Paul is facing charges on looting in Arizona and recently held a party that allegedly broke public health orders. Paul, 23, has over 20 million YouTube followers. I'm kind of, it'd be nice if people would watch more science videos. You should watch Cooking with Kale, my science YouTube channel, where I do live inventing on a green screen because I am so nerdy. I have a document camera and but no, people watch Jake Paul, but that's quite okay. I would totally expect only maybe 2 or 3 people to watch my videos. So if I get 10, I'm happy. Quote, the affidavit is in support of the search warrant The affidavit in support of the search warrant has been sealed by a judge, and I'm therefore prohibited from commenting on the nature of the investigation. No arrest or plan. Aerial footage from news outlets showed what was like firearms being removed from the home by investigators. According to the local ABC station, these weapons included a long gun, was next to the hot tub in the garden. In June, Paul was arrested in Scottsdale, Arizona during a protest, during a BLM Antifa Nazi riot at a shopping center following the drug overdose of George Floyd because he was banging dope and he did too much meth and fentanyl. And then he had a heart attack in the ambulance after Officer Chauvin got off of him. And because of this, it's impossible for Officer Chauvin to have killed him because this would have required him actually dying while he was on the ground. If Officer Chauvin did not kill George Floyd when he was on the ground, then if he had killed him, he could not have had a heart attack in the ambulance. But the news will not tell you this. I am one of the only news organizations in the world who's actually telling people the truth about this, that he died in the ambulance, because none of the organizations put it together. I watched the New York Times video. I didn't even notice it at first. I watched it 5 or 6 times, and eventually I was like, wait a minute. They said the dude's going into a heart attack in the ambulance. This doesn't add up. But this is kind of the way that the fake news has been going. It's really irritating. Fuck Jake Paul. Why the fuck am I talking about? Let's talk about something that matters. In this next news article from Hacker News Best, Django 3.1 has come out. In this release, they have asynchronous views and middleware support, JSON field for all supported database backends. Tokens, cookies, sessions, and signatures now use 256-bit SHA hashes. You can get this from their download page or from the Python package index. The PGP key ID used for this release is Murazuik Fel Ishizek, and then it's right here. You can see here, right? That's the more safe way to get the data. This next article from the Daily Mail, Fauci reveals hired personal security guards to protect his daughters after receiving death threats. Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that he has had to get security for protection after his family received threats of harassment, and his wife Christine Grady and their 3 adults daughters. Sorry that it was against those people. So I'm kind of unsure why anybody would want to kill Fauci. He seems like such a nice guy. Donald Trump seems to like him. He is one of those people who exist in this STEM bubble. I am a software and computer engineer. I have to deal with people in this STEM bubble, and they have been radicalized. 86% of scientists are Democrats. This causes them to look at all of the data through political lens. Means that you can't trust anything that they have to say. The only thing that you can actually trust them to actually do is science. And in the scientific community, we know that there are a lot of fruitcake scientists and that you cannot actually trust the things that the scientists say because you're kind of quacky. Everybody else, though, you tell them you're a doctor and they're like, they will listen to everything that you say as if you are a cult leader. This is very dangerous. In fact, the reason why they call it science is because it's independently verified. If it's not independently verified, it is not called science. It is called a theory. But in the era of fake news, where we have the fake news industrial complex, we have to go through massive amounts of bullshit, spun fake news from these STEM people. But you should not take this out on Dr. Fauci or his family. He is a wonderful person. You should blame all of the other scientists who have been radicalized, who now look at all of the data through a lens and who have corrupted the name of science. As a computer scientist and a computer engineer, and I also too make CO2 sequestering water heaters too, and audiovisual hardware like MIDI controllers and lighting equipment and MIDI software. I personally do not like having to say you cannot trust anything that comes from the scientists. But the sad part about this is that it's true. I'm willing to say it because they canceled me and I don't have a boss. I am the boss. So I can say whatever the fuck I want. In fact, I can even do it while drinking coffee. And you can't do anything about it. But the rest of these people, they have this power structure. If you, you have to understand the 40 laws of power. The laws of power govern our society, and whether or not you like them or not, if you are a powerful person, if you are higher up in the hierarchy, you engage in these powers, these behaviors without knowing them. And once you understand that the master is petty and vindictive, you can't ever trust these people ever again. The only thing that you have to understand that powerful people will be very petty and vindictive. Individually, they're going to believe in some kooky stuff. When they are at the podium presenting, they're going to look as good as they can. But then when you start to examine the human behind them, you're going to think they're a fruitcake. This is true of all human beings. If you think this is not true of you, you yourself are indeed actually batshit crazy. Once you understand that this is just an element of human nature, you can actually exploit it. You can actually become a very powerful person by exploiting how petty and vindictive other people are. All of these people in the STEM power structure do engage in blind devotion to those above them in the power structure. It is true that if you criticize someone higher up in the power structure, they'll go, wow. They will. They'll put the smack down. They'll fire you. They'll slander your name. You can't talk shit about the dude higher up. They got armies of brainwashed office drones that are plugging away every day like a drone, like a robot, right? They're in their office all day long just doing the right. And in order for them to move up in the office so that they're not click monkeys, they have to how do I say this in a way that is PG? They have to rub the ego of someone above them. They have to move up the chain through creating social connections. A lot of times these social connections are made over alcohol, other social functions that are at work. So the most brilliant scientists are often recluses. They aren't around other people. A lot of times this is how they get the time to do this. After I got canceled, I had no one else to hang out with. So I too have been engaging in the reclusive scientist thing, attempting to make, well, I have actually made a really cool CO2 sequestering water heater. Takes CO2 in the process of reclaiming waste heat and then allows you to breathe it through a biomimicry process. What am I talking about? They jump on me, though. These people jump on me. They gave me the smackdown. They're not nice. They are not friendly people. You criticize them, you're on the other side of them, then you'll see that the entire power structure is a shitbag. In this next article from Hacker News, defunctionalization and Freud theorem. It's from Bartos Milowiski. I don't know. We just call him Bart. I watch his C++ videos. This guy's really smart. But it outlines a concept of how you can... It's essentially stack winding. He doesn't say anything about stack winding in here. It looks just like stack winding to me. I'm unfamiliar why they would be different, but this is a method to recurse a binary tree using a fixed amount of memory rather than recursing the entire tree in memory and putting the whole thing in. So the easiest way to... it's similar to a local transformation in artificial intelligence, where you were able to basically stream a small portion of the data through a node to perform your task. I don't know enough about that. That's some grad level stuff. I don't know enough about it, but from what I do understand, this is way cool. He outlines the mathematics of how you can basically use these like graphs. I mean, they look so simple. You're like, how do you go from... You're able to go from these like simple relations into the ability to traverse a very huge data structure with a very limited amount of memory. And it's mind-blowing. You should check it out. This next article from Hacker News, Silicon Valley didn't inherit discrimination, but it replaced it. Who is this from? Bloomberg. It's from Bloomberg. And so this article outlines outlines the racial discrimination in Silicon Valley. That was actually the article I was trying to find earlier. I wonder whether or not I can find it here. I want to look at this because this shows you why these BLM people are batshit crazy. It does. It's very... it shows you that they can't do math. They absolutely can't do math. Okay. All right. I have figured out their thing is not based on your IP address. It is indeed based on the cache. So what these yabbers are saying is that there's racial inequality in Silicon Valley. And they give you this bullshit graph. They're saying that the black people are discriminated against because there's 78% white people here. Or no. There's 67% now, right? Where was that? High-tech companies competing at U.S. labor force. Okay. So they want you to feel bad for the black people in Silicon Valley. They say they're discriminated against. And I don't know what the Latinx is. It kind of sounds like Kleenex. I don't know. I know what a Latino is. Like, look at this. Look at this. This is discrimination. Wait a minute. What percent of America is white? 72%. Okay, so it's racist because there's too many white people. Oh, they're mostly males. Okay, so then is being a veterinarian, is that also too sexist because most of them are females? Or school teachers, right? It's like sexist to be a school teacher now. Well, as you can see, this is a lower percent than the general public. What percent of Silicon Valley is Asian? Here's the Silicon Valley demographics from Brandon Gale. Asians are like 43% of the population there. So, Silicon Valley, if you're not aware, if you live under a rock, Silicon Valley is like the hotbed where all the privileged people go to live their life of luxury in the ivory towers, where you have homeless people banging cartel dope and taking shits on the corner, where you can get Hep C, AIDS, cholera, typhoid fever, TB, and COVID because a bum coughed next to his shit where there was a hypodermic needle in it. You stepped on it. And so down there, it's mostly Asians. But because it's the epicenter, so we should expect there to be an equal amount of white people there, we would import the best and the brightest. And because in our country, the white people have more money, the Asians have the most money they have the highest pay because their grades are the best. And then the white people, there's most of them, but their GPAs are pretty high. If you want to see the GPA data, I've gone it over on the show a bunch of times. Doesn't look good for the black people. Here's the GPAs of all the of the 4 big races. The Asians up here at the top, followed by the white people, followed by the Kleenexes, or the Latinos, as everybody else has historically called them, followed by the African Americans. In last, with the 2.69, which honestly isn't horrible. I think a GPA is subjective, a little bit on the school you went to, but the pattern in these big cities is they're trying to not exclude black people, so they lower the bar, which is not how you go about doing that. But as you can see, they attempted to make it racially equal. So like, okay, well, we're trying to make it equal, so we're going to hire an equal amount of people from all of these different races. Because we're in America, we should be like bringing in the best and the brightest here in the Silicon Valley. But as you can see, this also too would also be racist if you just split it up equally, because there's 47% Asians in Silicon Valley. So there's this many white people here because it's a meritocracy, and to get the best and the brightest, you got to bring them in from the rest of the country. Most of them are going to be white. It looks like 72% of the country is white. 58% of Silicon Valley is not white. And I think what is the percent of whites, Caucasians dropped. So in comparison, the population of whites, Caucasians in Silicon Valley is expected to drop from 33% to 25%. So out of every group of people, it seems like the people who are in Silicon Valley, white people are underrepresented in the tech hub. But, we're going down, this is going into the slippery slope into absurdity land. This is, in fact, silly. We should be just hiring the best and the brightest. If your grades aren't good enough, I'm not going to feel bad that you did not get the privileged job that the Asians are jumping off the tops of buildings for. Now we have to have nets on the top of the buildings to prevent the Asians from killing themselves because they try so hard. They want to commit suicide. So unless you physically want to pay for the nets to replace them, to prevent the Asians from jumping off the top of buildings, I would just prefer that we move on to something because I'm fucking tired of talking about racism. This entire thing is stupid nonsense. Demographics of tech founders. Look, 80% white people. Asian Pacific Islanders is 16. Latinx is, I just can't stand it. Kleenexes are 4. I mean, the Latinos. Dude, no, the Latinos aren't. The only people using the word Latinx are stupid white people. It's true. Latinos love the O and the A. But the O come first. So, black people, 0. They're like, you should feel bad for the black people. Really? I should feel bad for the black people. Yeah. Yeah. I think your ass needs to get back to the classroom, open up them books, figure out a hobby, stop partying, having sex with so many people. You should probably be in the home more. You shouldn't abandon your child just because you want to continue partying, having sex with different women, because, well, it just makes your people suffer. They say it's discrimination by the white man, keeping the people of color down, yet they refuse to accept that white is also to a color. But this, I'm just going to chalk this up to like, that's pathetic. That's not discrimination. That's called your ass didn't try. All right, let's talk about people who actually do work and push the ball forward here. Man who got COVID-19 describes near-death experience like you are in the mud. You can't hear, you can't see. It was over 90%, or hold on. It was over 90% dead, 10% alive. Coronavirus tore my body up, Rick Hooks said. So, coronavirus attacks people with weaker immune systems. If you have diabetes, you're at 12 times higher of a risk. And so now is the time to become healthy. And if you are healthy, now is the time to get coronavirus so that you will be more immune to coronavirus in the future. Because if you are under the age of 45, you are 38 times less likely to die from COVID. And you're way less likely to die from the flu. So if you get COVID when you're young, right now, you're going to not pass it around. You won't be part of this like fear wave of crazy lefties wearing fucking masks all around. No, now they want us to wear goggles. That's what Fauci wants you to wear, goggles. He wants you to wear a mask and a goggles to the store, dude. Like, you got to wonder whether or not Fauci's losing his mind. Is next coming that he wants you to wear oven gloves, mask, and goggles to the store? Do I need to wear a hazmat suit to the store during flu season? What if my state doesn't have a COVID outbreak? Because I live in Oregon and the number of COVID deaths here is very low. If you scaled up the number of COVID deaths, it's about there's like 339. Okay, 4 divided by 320. Hold on. No. 320 divided by 4. Oregon's about 1/80th of the country. So, like, we had, like, what? COVID USA net going down to the bottom. We're going to tell you the actual number. Not just going to give you an estimate. We had 339 deaths from COVID. Right. So, let's take that 339, multiply that by 40. If Oregon was the size of the United States, we would have had about 13,560 COVID deaths. given that COVID is a new virus, this is the larger number that we're going to see, and then we're going to be immune to it, and then it'll be like the other coronaviruses. It'll be a common cold. So you can either run like a pussy or you can fight like a man. And personally, I'm not really down with this whole Democrat run like a pussy with my tail tucked in my legs, wear goggles, a face mask, and oven gloves to the store. I mean, I would totally wear a full body rubber suit to the store just for fun. But if the government ever made me wear one because we had this few COVID deaths, like so every single year there's about 490 flu deaths per year. Where's the calculator? So there's 490 flu deaths per year. So Oregon is about 4 million people, and the world has about 7 billion. I'm just going to go off that ratio. I don't know. I haven't looked at it. It keeps growing. So we got to put it at the top. So we're 7 billion, right? Okay. Oregon's about 1,750th of the world. So if we have about 490 flu deaths per year, we would expect about 280 deaths in Oregon. So when you look at this, it is 10 times larger. Is that right? Did I do that right? 9 of them, right? Yeah. No. Wait, no. So, I mean, that's a lot of deaths. I'm not discounting that number of deaths. But what is the 339 divided by... I had to make sure that my numbers were correct. Like, look, we're 20% over. We're like going to look at double the average. Look, we're in flu levels here. In Oregon, this is flu level deaths. And the reason why these people are dying, because they're older. They're out of shape. They have diabetes. These people might die next month from something else. They might get the flu and die from the flu the next fucking week, man. This is the problem with COVID lockdowns. This absolute problem. Well, the suicide rate skyrocketing, that should be bad enough. But then you have the tens of millions of projected deaths from starvation, and it looks like Democrats are fucking insane. Like, they don't care about anybody but themselves. How many more do we got here? Boy, we have a lot. I need to move quickly. There's good ones in here, too. Next article from the Daily Mail. Banning all travel is better at controlling a pandemic than reopening with a quarantine. U.S., U.K., and Canadian researchers found a crude blanket method where it was easier to enforce, despite being politically conscientious and economically damaging. So we would have to, in order, this is what they were saying, is how long would it take for 0.1 of the population to get infected? These are the games that they play. These are the math numbers that they throw in that, depending on the model, you can get wildly different outcomes. So when you look at anything that's like this, of like how many deaths we can save or how many infections we can stop, like all these things are speculative, coming from people who are looking at models that are pretty sketchy. If you actually look at the actually what happened, definitely a lot different than the models showed. So I wouldn't listen to anything that these people are saying. I would personally, I think that we just need to return to life as normal. That is the most healing thing that we could do, is to just resume control and then get rid of the Democrats so that we don't ever have to deal with these BLM Antifa Nazi Democrat race riots. This next article from the New York Post: Beirut explosion leaves up to 300,000 people homeless, similar to Hiroshima, according to the governor. The massive warehouse blast that killed at least 100 in Beirut was also left up to 300,000 people homeless, the governor said on Wednesday, comparing the devastation to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah, why you gotta say it twice, man? For real. I think there are between 250,000, 300,000 people who are now without homes. Governor Mara Audo told the Agence France Presse, estimating the damage. This was a fertilizer explosion. Here's the, damn it. Whoo, damn. So what was, wow. I'm unsure why the people are homeless. That's insane. That was such a big blast. Wow. That's like a nuclear bomb. I mean, that was almost as big as the Hiroshima bomb. That's a pretty decent analogy there. That was insane. They had, 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate was stored at the warehouse. It was confiscated from a cargo ship in 2014, so it definitely appears as if they let the fertilizer sit too long and it blew up. Yeah, you can't do that stuff with fertilizer, man. It's got to go. This next article from New York Post, Trump touts signing of Great American Outdoors Act. President Trump on Wednesday touted the passage of the Great American Outdoors Act, landmark environmental legislation that will deliver federal funding guarantees for public lands. For those that thought I wasn't into the environment, this is the biggest bill ever passed by far. I wonder if this will silence the fake news. Probably not. Nothing will silence the fake news. They will continue to attack Donald Trump as being bad for the environment, but you have to look at the reality of the situation is that China, every single year, their growth emissions grow by 6 times more than our CO2 emissions. So if we had our best case scenario where we cut our emissions by half, it wouldn't do anything. This is why the Republicans think the way they do, and this is a repeating story with the leftist hatred of Donald Trump and Trump supporters through the blame of Republicans as racist, is that they don't understand why the Republicans think the way they do. If they did understand why they thought the way they did, they probably might actually agree with them on most of what they think. Of course, it would be much worse if we all agreed on everything. Then we would heterodoxy, groupthink echo chamber. That's even more dangerous. So I personally, one of the things that made me like switching to be Republican, I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest. I was a radical liberal, a feminist. I used to troll the quote-unquote fascist on Facebook and argue with them. And then I realized one day that even though I'd been a feminist all my life and I helped start the protest, if I criticized feminism, that people would turn on me. So I started criticizing feminism on Facebook, posting meninist jokes, and lo and behold, the feminazis came out of the woodwork and started trolling me, and then it did not stop. It built up into I had to delete my account, and so then I became I was a Democrat. all the way up until I started realizing that illegal immigration was bad. And then once I realized that, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't support illegal immigration at all. And I became a Republican. And I always liked being the pro-environment voice in the Republican side. I don't feel like people are against me. The thing that I get that I actually agree with from Republicans and why the left criticizes them about the environment is you get some older people who they've been told their whole life there's going to be the end of the world. It's either going to be the ozone layer or nuclear annihilation or some other cultish thing. And after you've heard these things enough in your life, you slowly stop paying attention to them. And this is why a lot of older Republicans don't believe that global warming is happening, because they think that, well, first off, there's a lot of evidence that catastrophic species extinction is not going to happen. That it's a very normal thing for species to die off and for other species to replace them. This is called reality. This is called evolution. It's been happening since the dawn of time. And this is also another example of leftist scientists looking at the data through a skewed lens, because 86% of them are Democrats. But this is a very big win for Donald Trump and for America. What is in this act? I would like to know what is actually in it. It was passed by a GOP-led Senate, 73-25, and passed by a Democrat House-led House, 310-107. It's just some fluff. What does it have? We like to look at that stuff on this show. Is there a wiki page? Even though wiki's fake news, this isn't news. Wikipedia is decent for stuff that, if you're trying to get a quick fact. Every source has bias in it. What is the Great American Outdoors Act? It says it's a bill passed by the U.S. Congress and signed into law by the King of Memes on August 4th, 2020. It has two major components: fully and permanently funding the Land and Water Conservation Fund at $900 million per year and providing $9.5 billion over the next 5 years to address maintenance backlog. All right, I need to drink more coffee. At American National Parks, the Associated Press wrote it was the most significant conservation legislation enacted in nearly half a century. That's called an opinion. So, in Wikipedia, you're supposed to put a summary of the stuff at the bottom, at the top. That no way summarizes the rest of the information. It says support and opposition, legislative history. An opinion from a newspaper is not a fact. When you put stuff in Wikipedia, it's supposed to be factual. It's supposed to be objective, not subjective. This would be an opinion. In the future, we'll look back. Probably will agree with the opinion, but until then, it would be foolish to say that that is not an opinion. But Wikipedia is fake news. Next article from the Daily Mail. Hillary Clinton warns of sabotaging USPS to make mail-in voting harder. Maybe Trump's re-election plan. I'm having troubles today. Hillary Clinton took to Twitter to warn that mail-in voting will be more difficult, is a strategy by Donald Trump to aid his re-election. Sorry. He's trying to make... Look, this whole thing about mail-in re-elections, this thing is kooky. I live in Oregon. We thought mail-in ballots were just perfectly fine, that there was no problem with them. But there's a problem with mail-in ballots. It's that first, well, there's a bunch of problems with mail-in ballots. One of them is that they sit on your table for a long time. So if people with Trump derangement syndrome have access to your ballot, they will probably steal it. They've been engaging in rampant crime all around the country. The murder rates in these big cities are through the roof. It's mostly BLM members doing these murders. And they're definitely anti-police. They're definitely people who support defunding the police who are doing the murders. That's 100%. 100% factual. Is that factual? I mean, if you're murdering people, that's kind of like, it's pretty like anti-police. So the mail-in ballot fraud is a lot higher than you think. It just hasn't been getting addressed because the states that have it are Democrat states. In Oregon, we've had ballot fraud in the past. Upwards to 2.5 to 5% of ballots have been found to be fraudulent in counties in Oregon. So it is on record. It does happen here, and it's not a negligible amount. The reason why absentee ballot voting is not as dangerous as everyone doing mail-in is that you have to request it, that you are sent it when you request it, and then when you get it, it's not like you mailed it out to everybody. People know you mailed out ballots, and then people can go steal the ballot. People don't know whether or not you're an absentee voter, so they can't just go steal the ballot when they don't know what's there, because that would be kind of hard. They have to know the ballot's going to be there at some specific time, or else it's kind of random. So absentee balloting, if there's a small amount of fraud on a small amount of people, then that's a very small amount of fraud. But if everybody does mail-in ballots and then there's 2 to 5% fraud, well, that's enough to swing elections. Definitely going to take issue with that. The other issue you have is that people can intimidate each other at their house when they vote, or someone who is in a controlling position over someone else can fill out the ballot. So, yes, this can also happen in absentee ballot voting. It could. But it becomes systemic when everybody votes by mail, and when people sit down together and fill out their ballots, and they fill out the ballot the way their friends wanted them to see the ballot filled out. This is the point where it becomes undemocratic and it becomes susceptible to fraud, mass voter fraud. It's not a joke, not something we should mess around with. We should definitely have the option. See, I don't have the option of going down to the polling place, going into a polling booth where I can close the curtains around me. I can, in privacy, cast my vote without having anyone else intimidating me or controlling me. This is why mail-in voting is not good, and why we should switch to in-person voting. When we're at the polls, we can also speak to our neighbors. We can ask them about things that we did not know about. We can get information out. And this is a much stronger form of democracy. It also gives us an option. I'm being deprived of that option. Therefore, if we could have the mail-in voting without it, but when we only do mail-in ballot, I'm deprived of this extremely vital in-person voting, then that is a lesser form of democracy. The Democrats that control Oregon are very, very unevolved. I'm not a conspiracy person. This is just a joke, but they do actually kind of resemble lizard people. I don't actually think that there's lizard people, but if there were lizard people, it would be California and Oregon Democrats that work for the public employees unions. They are a shifty crowd of people. You can't trust them at all. The only kinds of people that would come up in a hierarchy of the public sector unions are the most detestable Democrats that you can come across. In this next article from the Daily Mail, Trump claims Nevada does not use signature verification on mail-in ballots, and he sues the state. Donald Trump is suing Nevada over its decision to conduct November's election via mail, claiming Wednesday that the state does not verify signatures to confirm the ballot isn't fraudulent. That is another problem. You see, the problem with mail-in voting, well, I mean, I just outlined a bunch of very, very, very bad problems with it. This is the other bad problem with it is when you're going to switch to this system, once you've had the system for a while, yeah, we can use AI to check your signature. But when we switch to the system, we don't have the signatures in the database at that point in time. So then we're relying on whatever you signed at the DMV or some other things. It's kind of patchwork. Systems like these can be exploited by hostile actors. It's the fact that we switched the system is why the corruption happened, the fraudulent elections. It's not a joke. Donald Trump is well within his right. And the media was just lambasting Donald Trump about saying, should we delay the election? And people are saying he doesn't have, or the fake news industrial complex, they were saying that Donald Trump does not have the authority. And I actually did debunk this. I actually had a episode on Real Simple News debunking this. So I was one of the first people to debunk this fake news media or fake news industrial complex claim that Donald Trump does not have authority. Yes, in fact, he does actually have authority as a U.S. citizen to file in court to delay an election because he's on the ballot and therefore he is a party to it. That's why he has the authority to file a lawsuit to delay the election because he's affected by it. That's how the law works. But the people who run the Fake News Week and the Daily Fake Mail and all of these other tabloids masquerading as journalism do not have law degrees. They're leftists. They're not very educated. They don't know very much about how the government works or science. They got some journalism degree. They're part of a journalist class. They just went to school to get a degree. They didn't do I'm only doing this because I want to. It's a hobby and because I have to. I am an engineer, computer scientist by training. That's what I do. I do AI. I do C++. I do websites. I do pen and paper human computer interactions. And so my knowledge and how I'm actually able to do this so good is that I have a bunch of I never went to school for journalism. I took a lot of writing classes, wrote a lot of papers, but I've studied enough news and I know enough about science and I know enough about the electoral process, enough about courts. I'm not going to give you fake news. But the other journalists who just went to school because they wanted to write, they're doing a sadly pathetic job and they are spewing out fake news like a fire hydrant. But luckily, there are more people like me. Trust me, once I get this trendy, there will be other people imitating me all over. And I definitely encourage you to actually do that. We are an open source news organization and you can download the files so that you can also, too, make your own Real Simple News show because Real Simple News is really simple syndication. It's the form of news that you are seeing. It's this thing right here. This app is an RSS news reader. So, this next news article from the New York Post, Trump says teachers in a certain age group should stay at home in fall due to COVID-19. If a teacher in a certain age group thinks they shouldn't be going in and probably shouldn't, they'll have to wait until things goes by, says Trump during a Fox and Friends meeting. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you. Thank you for being the voice of sanity. This entire thing is insane. We've been looking at this chart. You can add up the numbers. You can see people under the age of 45, their risk of dying from COVID is 38 times less as the whole group. Then you go down and it gets really low. So these kids need to be in school. These kids not being in school is of paramount, or it's a detrimental threat to these kids. This is the worst thing that you could possibly do to them. Just deprive them of their social connections, of their education, of their future. You're going to put them in a life of poverty, going to increase suicide rates just because you want to be a pussy about COVID. If you can't do the fucking job, I'll do the job, dude. I got a spine. I'm not a pussy. This next article from Fake News Week. Trump ambassador called refugees unwanted invaders, advocated shooting people at the Mexican border. Quote, the only solution is martial law on the border, putting the United States Army in charge of it, retired Army Colonel Douglas McGregor said on 2019. And so McGregor is completely wrong. No, I have an alternative solution. My solution is that we put a giant moat across the border and that we fill it with sharks with laser beams on their heads, alligators and snakes, and that we put lions and tigers and bears along the border. And if the border crossers want to jump across, they will be eaten by the animals. But this is not racist because, first off, Mexicans are not a race of people. And two, it is a zoo where you can go and you can meet with Americans on the other side. And it just so happens that there are enough stupid Americans that they might also, too, jump in the pit to try to wrestle a bear or an alligator. So cry me a fucking river about your border jumper that jumped into the pit. In this next fake news article from the New York Post, Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre alleges Prince Andrews used puppet on himself on victims. Prince Andrews used a puppet of himself to allegedly grope Virginia Roberts Giuffre and another accuser in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan townhouse before an erotic massage in the quote-unquote dungeon, Giuffre claims. And this is fake news because this picture of Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrews was taken in the United Kingdom when Virginia was 17 years old, and the age of consent in the UK is 16. Here's a prime example of stupid journalists who can't do basic math, who will feed you fake news garbage left and right. They will smear someone's reputation. They will do anything to get you to like the post, watch the ad, buy the product, and vote for them. And so what they've done here is they've framed Prince Andrews as a pedophile for having sex with a woman who's of moderate attractiveness, and she's 17 years old. And she gave him a massage, and I think that's what she was paid for. And then in the massage, they probably had some sort of sexual intercourse. And I don't know about you, but like, there's a difference in between having sex with a rich guy and then he gives you money and you being a hooker with a pimp. So if you are a hooker with a pimp, you get sex trafficked when the pimp sells you for money. Okay? That's what you call sex trafficking. If you are a rich guy, sluts will try to have sex with you so that you'll give them money. I know this sounds like a shock, but there are actually dirty cock-sucking ratchets who will blow dudes for $20 and a 5-sack. In fact, she might even suck your dong after you stuck it in her butt for a line of coke. This is what we call a ratchet. She's just like a doorknob. Everybody gets a turn. And if you are a ratchet and a hoe, shame on you. You at that point in time have become a prostitute. This is a shameful behavior. Your family should be shamed. This is not something that is Prince Andrew's fault. If the age of consent is 16 and she is 17 years old and you want to be a slut, well, your picture is going to be up on YouTube with some dude calling you a hooker and a prostitute. I personally don't think that this was prostitution. I think that they had money and she gave him a massage and she got money for the massage. And then in that massage, they've been getting sexually aroused. That's what masseuses do. But they had a bunch of overage masseuses. So it wasn't just all teenagers. This is the thing that's infuriating about the Epstein thing. It wasn't just teenage. The girls were giving massages to people. And the masseuses were not all underage. There were above age masseuses. Jeffrey Epstein ran a modeling agency that had a number of the world's hottest models. I, too, would really like to stick my dick inside of some of these super hot models. Some of them were under the age of 18. That is the truth. This is why nobody thought it was actually a problem, because it only depended on where you were at, whether or not that was illegal. I live in Oregon, where the age of consent is 18. But if you go across the border to Washington, the age of consent is 16. 2, just like the UK. At that point in time, you, as someone who could actually fight me in a fight and probably fuck me up, because let's be real, any person who's like small, if you discount them, they can fuck you up in a fight. They can. Like they'll do something. I was at a rave, just walking down the street, just walking down a path. I was giving out these masks for a masquerade ball I was throwing. And this girl had her little itty bitty skinny, scrawny little raver chick, like probably 80 pounds wet, had her elbow up, and I'm walking down the trail and she went wham, whacked me in the nose, broke my nose. It's pretty easy to fuck somebody up. This is why they say when you're fronting like you're hard, you're going to get mowed down, because you ain't hard, you soft. Don't front like you're hard, because your body is soft like Jello. Okay? Unless your body is hard like a fucking rock, don't front like you're hard. What the fuck am I even talking about? Here, wait a minute. None of you motherfuckers are paying me any money, so I'm going to smoke some weed. What the fuck was I talking about? Oh, yeah, the fake news. Trying to say this dude's a pedo, when in reality, she was not a minor. She definitely does not look like a child. So obviously, she's not prepubescent. In order for it to be pedophilia, she has to be a child. This woman is 17, almost an adult, in a place where the age of consent is 16. It's fake news. This next article from the New York Post: Trump slams Black Lives Matter organization as a Marxist group. Sorry, I just read that. Oops. In this next fake news article from Fake News Week, it's time to stop the Trump administration's global war on women. It's an opinion. They put it in the news section because Fake News Week is opinion masquerading as journalism. They say there's a war on women because the black people use contraceptive or abortion as a contraceptive, because 92% of them are Democrats and the vast majority of other people don't do this. And so they're saying that it's a war on women if you want to ban abortion. And I think there's a bunch of hogwash. I think if you think that that is a life, that is your opinion. If your opinion is that fetus is a human being, I 100% back you up on that. I personally don't think that that is true. I think that there an eye for an eye, a nose for a nose, tooth for a tooth. Fetuses don't have eyes, they don't have teeth, and they don't have feet for like, 7 or 8 weeks? There's some period of time where hold on, the Bible is not the kind of book that you're going to use to try to like justify not killing a child. The Bible is horrible about advocating for killing children. There's no book in the world that I've ever heard about that advocates for killing children more than the Bible. But this does not mean that the words do not inspire you with God, because the devil also works in mysterious ways too. And other people have been inspired by God when they read this message. And if you have been inspired by God when you read that message, I fully support you. I fully support other people not dogging on you and your religion. I personally am more Jewish myself. But they're saying there's a war. A war means somebody has to be dying. Obviously, there's a war on fetuses from the other side, because you can say what you want about abortion, but there's a thing called a birth rate. We can look at them. We can see what the birth rates are. Hold on. Let's have it all in one graph, huh? Here's the birth rates. Over here. This is all the birth rates here. We got birth rates of white people, birth rates of the non-Hispanic. There's minority growth, total growth. We can see everybody's trending downhill up here. Where you see that circle, see everybody's birth rates. We're all trending downhill, right? So you got some really corrupt Democrats who, the world population is just exploding. Here's a chart of the world population, where the red one's Africa, the green one is Asia. And then we can see the projections from the U.S. Census Bureau from 1900 to 2016 and population projections from 2017 to 2016 based upon an immigration scenario. So we can see, while all of your birth rates are going down, the Democrats want to pack in way more immigrants because 2/3 of them vote for Democrats. Which is a pretty shitty margin. If you think about it, they could really easily, if they voted for Republicans, they would not want them in. Democrats don't want the immigrants not in here because, or hold on. Let me explain to you what the populations are here. Here's if there's no immigration at the bottom. By 2060, we would have 319.7 million people. At a low immigration policy, we would have 376.2 million. High immigration policy, 446.9 million. So since your birth rates are going down, your genes are not going to be the ones that are growing in the gene pool. They're going to be foreign genes from outside of the country. Even though you pay taxes, you're the one that votes here. You're the one that built this society now. And the Asians, their birth rates are at only child right now. The Asians aren't in here, but they're literally only child. And you could see it in the thing that I got this graph from, this U.S. populations 1900 to 2060. And then population projections 2017 to 2060 by immigration scenario. That one's from the Census Bureau. You can see you can also see in there the Asian birth rates, and it's at 1.0. It's like only child. So when you bring in Asians from outside of the country, here we could see the where is it? The percent of people coming from different continents. There's South and East Asia is the second one from the top. The top one's Europe. Here's Southeast Asia. So there's people coming in. So there's like Asians, right? But they're like not the Americans' genes. They're like genes from outside of the country. And this, as an Asian person, this is very bad for you. Your genes are now no longer propagating around the gene pool because they'd rather pack in immigrants. They want you and your family. They want your wife to put off having a kid, to slave for some corporation and kill off her genetic line. And then you have to be lonely, depressed, anxious, overworked, and you don't get to have a family so that you can go slave for some corporation. These corporations are in big cities run by Democrats. So, and then we just replace you with immigrants because that's what Democrats want. Like, this doesn't make any sense, dude. None of it makes any sense. So I look at this whole thing with the abortion thing, knowing, okay, the immigration scenario looks bad for all of the Americans. It's not looking good for Latinos. It's not looking good for it. It's only looking good for immigrants right now. Everybody else, it looks like a perfect storm. And this is when the cultural Marxists are showing up. And and then there's all these trails that go back to China. You have to look at this, and you have to look at it from a perspective of, is the leftist in bed with China? I mean, what do they want? They want to kill babies. They want to kill Trump supporters. They want to reverse everything Trump has done. They want to destroy our cultural monuments. They want more handouts. So they want more socialism. I know Newsweek is, if you go to their webpage, they put these things in there like, this one's from a left source, this one's from a center source, this is from a center source. That does not make you not biased. Like, just because you put out a bunch of propaganda on both sides does not mean that you're not incredibly biased. You're biased in the favor of propaganda because it's clickbait that you make money from. That's all these people are doing. This is not supposed to be in the news section. This is detestable that they would stick this in a news section, an opinion piece, advocating for the murder of children. And I personally think that there's arguments to be made on both sides. I don't know how I would come down on the issue because the backroom abortions thing, yeah, I mean, that's a good argument. How good of an argument is that? What percent? you don't need a coat hanger to have an abortion anymore, dude. There's like chemical methods. You have better access to planes to go to other states. But that by itself, to force somebody to do that, would break our Constitution of equal protection under the law. I personally think that is a very complicated legal issue. When you actually go down into it, the Constitution doesn't give you any protections to against abortion. But if there is a war, somebody has to die. The only people who aren't dying here are the aborted fetuses. So obviously, the very notion of a war on women is politically biased. It's spun. This next article from the Daily Mail: a drunk Lyft passenger rips down a partition and chokes out a driver while the car is still moving. Travis F. Smith, 36, has been seen in dashboard footage from a Lyft ride in Florida on Sunday, ripping down a plastic screen erected to help protect the driver amid the COVID-19 pandemic. It really irritates me when people try to demand that they don't have to wear a mask in a Uber, in a taxi, or a store, because this fundamentally is totalitarianism. That's authoritarianism. You are going on somebody else's property. You're stepping into somebody else's car that you could possibly give them not just COVID, but the flu. This person has to work. This person is exposed to all kinds of stuff. They need to take every precaution that they need to get it down, because the number one place you're going to get COVID, at your house, probably in your living room when you're hanging out with other people, unless your living room is in your bedroom, or it's going to be in a car when you're talking to someone, when you're in close proximity and the vapor from your air can go out. This is when you need to wear a mask. This is absolutely when you need to wear a mask, because that person is not, that's not like a normal thing that people engage in, driving people around in an Uber. That's not natural. You got to look at it from the nature standpoint, because nature is the best medicine. Nature will take care of us. Coronavirus is a common cold, man. SARS-CoV-2. Give you SARS because your body doesn't know what it is. Till after that, it's probably going to be a common cold, dude. Not even going to, it's just going to slip away. It's so far, it's showing that it's probably not going to be very deadly, given by the fact that young people don't die from it. So young people are more susceptible to dying from the flu because their body can't recognize it. The flu starts to replicate and then it shuts your organs down. With SARS-CoV-2, it's flip-flopped. Older people are having SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. This is causing an autoimmune response, which causes the white blood cells in your body to attack otherwise healthy cells. They're getting the wrong cells. And it's because you've had so many other infections in your body that they are getting the wrong chemical signatures from the wrong cells. This means you need to get some coronaviruses in you. You need to get some COVID. You need to get all those different strands of COVID, and then it's going to be like a coronavirus. It's going to be like a cold, because you look at the death rates of the young people who their bodies are not fighting it. And so when the bodies aren't killing the wrong cells, they're not dying. So this shows you that it's probably going to be like the other coronaviruses. But the fake news will try to take down your post. The fake news will try to tell you otherwise to scare you into buying their articles. And Facebook will take down your post if you say anything about it. It's because they're radical leftists in an echo chamber, engaging in groupthink and heterodoxy, where they all have the same orthodoxy. It's because 86% of scientists are Democrats. 86% of Silicon Valley are Democrats. And when you get that many people in an echo chamber, it becomes groupthink, and they become brainwashed drones of the fake news industrial complex. burning down your city, rioting, looting, murdering, terrorizing you for months because you want to elect Donald Trump, the horrible white supremacist, misogynist pig. Then, as it turns out, when Donald Trump said, grab him by the pussy, he's a billionaire. Women all the time come on to billionaires and want to have babies with them. As it turns out, she actually did want him to grab her by the pussy. And if you actually say this to a feminist, they'll flip a wig. But if you say it to a bunch of homies, they will crack up. And the reason for this is because the women have been radicalized. They are in control of 86% of the consumer spending, so they get all of the ads targeted at them. This is why the entire world has gone batshit crazy. As it turns out, fascism actually came out of the women's suffrage movement. In 1918, women won their voting rights in Germany. And they proceeded to elect Adolf Hitler because women can be very, very vicious people. Oh, wait, the video. What am I saying? Democrats, they in control of the white feminist. They'll be some savage people. Let's watch the dude flip out. Oh, no audio. I don't think there's any audio on it. Now, what was he saying? Whoa. So they're driving this thing. And what did they do? The dude went to jail. Travis F. Smith, 36, has been seen in dashboard footage on Sunday ripping down a plastic screen erected to protect the driver from COVID outbreak and puts the 47-year-old man in a chokehold while the car is moving. Smith's friend Andy Castile is heard yelling, "Get that mother effer," as he's seen as his 7-year-old son begins crying and they jump out of the car. Smith lied and said he grabbed the driver because he was driving erratically. Smith was arrested and charged with battery and child abuse. Police said he put the younger passenger's life in danger. Father and son were visiting Smith in Florida from Maine, but they also had to stay at a hotel after the assailant refused to give them the keys to his home. Huh. Crazy. Where was this? Up in the hood? I bet he's a hood Democrat. Oh, and this next fake news article from Newsweek, or fake Newsweek. Nationwide mask mandate in April would have likely saved nearly 40,000 American lives, study finds. New study said 40% of American lives lost by June 1st could have been saved if a mask mandate for public-based workers had been introduced in early April. Right, that's because these people are looking back years later, looking at the entire death toll, looking at the death toll, and next years looking at the suicide numbers, and they're looking at everything all together in aggregate. They're making this based on an educated decision. No, they're not. This is some dude's speculation. The truth about masks are that if you don't wear them properly, they're not effective. The truth about masks is that it tells you, the people who are infected, that they can just go out to the store being infected. Look, the stores are lowest risk to get in COVID. People get COVID when they have close personal interactions with each other because they're getting the stuff from your face. This is the place where it's appropriate to wear a mask. The other places, not appropriate to wear a mask. You wear a mask if you care about getting COVID. If you want everybody, the fake news media just makes it seem like there's COVID everywhere all the time. It's not true. This isn't true. There's COVID outbreaks, And if you look at, I've already covered the COVID numbers in depth on yesterday's show. I'm not going to go in there again, but when you look at them, you'll see there's only 4 or 5 states that are having COVID problems. The rest of the states are not. So when they tell you there's a second wave, this is a bunch of hogwash baloney. There's no evidence behind it. The evidence, in fact, actually is quite the opposite. If there is no COVID problem in your state, what the fuck are you doing wearing a mask? You're an idiot. This next article from the Daily Mail, Texas math teacher 25 charged with having sex with a 15-year-old boy. Haley Purdy from Texas has been charged with felony count of improper relationship between an educator and a student stemming from her alleged tryst with a 15-year-old student in 2018. Sorry, that's my USB messing up. Haley Purdy is accused. Hold on. She was hired as a math teacher at the school just 2 months prior. School officials were tipped off about the tryst 9 months later and suspended Purdy after she was fired. She was fired last November. And as you can see, she was kind of cute. What makes you wonder who started it? Is it as bad if he started it? So, men usually typically instigate things. So if a teacher finds herself alone with the male student and then he instigates it, do the Me Too people with pitchforks go after them and they want to kill them too? Because that's typically what happens when you put something up about a guy doing the same thing. I'm just wondering what that is. You should probably comment on that on issue ticket number 61 on GitHub in the Real Simple News repository. Question: would you tap that after she's a sex offender? This is the question that everybody wants to know. Next article from the Daily Mail. Cops cuff a pregnant black woman eating ice cream at gunpoint. Latasha Taylor was ordered from her car at gunpoint in Evanston, Indiana on July 27th and placed in handcuffs after a bogus 9/11 claim she was threatened a woman with a gun. This is sad. So she's claiming it didn't happen. The police pulled her over, searched her, or what was that? The cops found no firearm and told Taylor they believed the call was complete BS and they removed her handcuffs. Taylor accused the officers of putting her and her unborn child's life in danger. I'm going to push back in that I think that you should probably reassess the way that you view police officers. I personally have had close to 100 police officers point guns at me. I used to be a raver. I used to sell drugs, dosed over 50,000 people with psychedelics. I used to throw huge raves, thousands of people at them. And I've had some scary situations. One time there was 50 cops and they had all kinds of assault rifles. And then there was another situation where there was 10 cops that came out. I was calling a friend out in a car and somebody thought I was smoking pot, one of the neighbors, and they called the cops and they came up with guns drawn. And there have been a number of other occasions, lots of raves. But I've also had 2 home invasion robberies where there was a black guy and a white guy. One time I was there, one time I was not. My sister was there. She had a knife put to her throat. Black guy pulled the white guy off. They were both high on drugs. Second time, it was at my house. My son's mother was pregnant with my son, and some black and a white guy kicked in my door with some guns and robbed me. And another time, I was held hostage by a serial killer in an RV. Got put in a closet, and he pulled me out with a AK-47 pointed at me, and then the pregnant woman that was there took another gun, and it was like a hostage standoff for multiple hours. And that was by far, in a way more terrifying than the police. I know it seems to people who sell drugs that you're getting discriminated against, but there is a thing called a ballot box. If you don't have the votes to legalize drugs, or if you don't try, well, I just am not going to feel bad for you. You probably should not do drugs. But if you do have any drugs, you should share with me. But there is a very bad murder problem in the African American community. There's about 20,000 homicides per year. Half of them are committed by black people. More than about 54% of them the victims are black people. 92% of the victims are black people killing other black people. So, that's like about 10,000 black people killing other black people per year. That's crazy, dude. That's insane. In fact, actually, it is exactly half, actually. That's insane. So you do have to take the lemon with the lemonade. Else it would not be lemonade. And if we do want to stop having cops point guns at us, we can legalize drugs. But the problem is that hood Democrats often sell drugs. So why would they want to legalize drugs? This is why BLM is not trying to legalize drugs. It's why instead they're pushing for LGBTQI 2CB plus drugs, or gender. What? I don't know. What the hell are you? There's like, what the hell are they doing, dude? What the hell does BLM do? Like, what laws are they trying to support? You see, this is the problem. They're going to tell you after the election. This is all just about hating Donald Trump. All these BLM, Antifa Nazi, Democrat race riots. But they're going to tell you after the election, after they've already won, what laws they're going to pass and what they're going to repeal. This is the fundamental problem with BLM Antifa Nazis. This is the absolute fundamental problem. They're trying to do cultural Marxism, and then they're not going to tell us what they're going to do, but we know from their actions it's cultural Marxism. So this is what's going to happen: is people are going to now start swatting you and calling the cops on you, and it's going to escalate, because if every single time I see a black person, they talk about how much of a racist piece of shit I am and how they need to take what my family built because I'm a racist piece of shit, why would I want to associate with that person? I would associate with that person because I think that they're funny as hell. I like hanging out with them. I like working with them. They're often discriminated against. I'm also too discriminated against. But then it's always ends up turning out to be like racism. And so we just got to look, there's like danger ahead. This isn't, we're not playing around. It's not, there's permanent consequences where there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to start stereotyping people based on 92% of black people voting for Democrats. And then now it went from getting discriminated against because of the crime to getting discriminated against the crime and because of the hatred of Trump supporters. And now you start to like make a lot of enemies, which is pretty common with hood Democrats. They are some of the most violent people in America. They probably actually are the most violent group of people in America. So you can't really put it past them that it's not going to escalate into a fight. So it's best that the black people just say, look, fuck you Democrats, dude. Fuck you. This is not going good for me or my family. And join everybody else who too also has been saying that to the Democrats, that these policies aren't good for my family. They're not good for me. They don't make my family grow. I don't get anything out of this. If I'm going to vote for Joe Biden, what do I get? He's going to make the Federal Reserve talk about race. That's part of Joe Biden's plan, is the Federal Reserve, which doesn't really have anything to do with anything other than banks. That they're going to now talk about race. And then he wants to give $15,000 to minority first-time home buyers. So like gangbangers up in the city, they want to give $15,000 to each gangbanger. All the Crips, all the Bloods, all the white supremacist all the blacks, paramilitary gangs that have been terrorizing people. You give money to those people, and then we want to help minority businesses, or that's what Joe Biden wants to do. He wants to help minority business, and so how does this help me? How does it help me for the government to give a loan to some hip hop hood Democrat who wants to get a loan to start a music studio up in the hood that's going to fail? Right? Just free money. You don't have to actually make something that's worth a shit. It's free money from the government. How does that help my family? Like, what does voting for Joe Biden do for my family? It doesn't do anything. It takes from my family. It makes them win. So that means it shows that whatever they fought for was vindicated now because they won. Shows they were right. So that means the attacks continue. They just learn to get what they want. And so when this tactic escalates, then swatting becomes more common. Once this starts happening, the police death counts homicide counts starts to go up. It does the opposite of what you want to do. So we must definitely start scolding the Democrats for the bullshit politics that they brought us that have made our country so horrible. This next article from Rashida Tlaib, it's from the Times of Israel. Rashida Tlaib wins Democratic primary in Michigan. Palestinian American lawmaker who supports an Israeli boycott movement. Underdog Republican candidate in November. So not only do they hate white people, they hate white males, they hate police officers, they also hate Israel. This is so common in Democrats. Democrats hate Israelis. In fact, they even engage in conspiracy theories that Jews control the world because they think the media is controlled by Jews because Republicans support Jews. You want to know why I support Israel? It's because they're fucking awesome. It's because their women are beautiful and their men are handsome and their scientists are brilliant. They're wonderful, beautiful people. I think over there in the Middle East, they're a bastion of sanity. As for the Palestinians, not so much. And the Israelis tried to make a one state, like bringing in the Muslims into America, like saying, it's like in America, we offered to give the illegal immigrants citizenship. And they said, fuck you, die. That's exactly what happened over there. It's like, okay, build a wall, right? Well, they don't have enough space to put a moat. I personally am a big fan of the moat with sharks with laser beams on their heads, alligators and snakes, with lions, tigers, and bears, because it'd be a great way for people on both sides to come together and meet up. It would just be great. It would be a wonderful zoo. And if you jumped in it, well, it would be the last thing you ever did. You would be food, but you would be food, so you would not go to waste. But the Palestinians can't stop the hate. They can't stop sending missiles, doing terrorist attacks. So I'm going to let them take care of their own, because I don't live there. I don't pay taxes there. I don't vote there. I don't know enough about it. The only thing that I know is I really don't support Hezbollah. And I really, really support what the Jews have done and their accomplishments. Democrats, however, hate these people. And they think that I'm in control of the Jewish state, AI pack, because I'm endorsing Israel. But the reality of the situation is I'm endorsing Israel because I'm not anti-Semitic. And I think that they are brilliant. In this next article from NPR, Trump suggests convention speech at White House. GOP Senate asks, is that even legal? Meanwhile, Joe Biden will not travel to host city Milwaukee for the host city in Milwaukee for the Democratic convention because of the pandemic, and neither will any other speaker. So it is his house. He's allowed to do that at his house. There's other functions. Yeah, I guess, you don't know what to say about that, because he's just going to be carrying he is the office of the president. The office of the president goes everywhere Donald Trump goes. Everywhere it goes, you see that big fancy airplane, Air Force One, or you see Marine Force One, and you see a massive amount of Secret Service. It's a display of force everywhere he goes. You do not want to F with the president of the United States. So this is actually a complicated legal matter because it is his house. If you're going to say trying to dictate the exact places in his house where he can do it, I think the court is going to start saying we're splitting hairs. I don't have any business here. This is what you got to say is, are you suffering injuries? All right. So when he goes and he does his speech in person and he has Air Force One with him, is that not use of the presidential office in the election campaign? Would it be possible to not do that? Okay, well, obviously it would be impossible to not do that. So therefore, this would be a non-issue. In this next Newsweek article, Afghanistan estimates coronavirus cases have more than doubled the U.S. confirmed infections. And I do believe that South America is the hot spot right now still. So it looks like the fake news media industrial complex has been selling us bullshit lies, trying to push out as many fake news articles as they can to get as many people to click on them as possible, because it's a numbers game. I play this numbers game on YouTube too. This is why this show is on August 6th, but it's labeled August 5th because it's a numbers game. I have enough articles to do 2 shows. It's a numbers game. I have to get more views in front of more people in order to grow. That's the way that they work too. I've learned a lot about entrepreneurship from a YouTube channel, more than I did from making MIDI and lighting controllers. Definitely. I was kind of clueless when I did that. And this actually, YouTube is you have to be very good at branding on YouTube. I would highly recommend trying to start a YouTube channel if you're an entrepreneur, because you will learn a lot. What does this have to do about this? So basically, they're trying to put out as many fake stories as they can to get you to read them, subscribe to their thing, so watch the ad, subscribe to Newsweek, and they've been labeling the United States as a COVID hotbed of the world. And now people in South America have been saying, fuck going to the United States. It's a COVID shithole. Yes. And then they turn into the hotbed of COVID. It goes to show you, you should not be sitting here looking at the peak go up and down in the stats and try to judge the size of the forest while you're still at the ground level. If you're going to try to see the forest, you need to go up. You need to go to the top of the mountain so that you can actually see the forest. Else, you will not be able to see the forest for the trees. So, the United States has a good mortality rate. Everyone is going to get COVID multiple times in their life, just like you get coronavirus. You've already had coronavirus, probably. It's called a common cold. So, other countries have it way worse. The United States, our mortality rate is actually pretty low. It's not very high. The mortality rate is what we really care about. We are not trying to prevent people from getting something that they're inevitably going to get unless our healthcare resources are overwhelmed. But the fact is, COVID outbreaks are only in a limited number of states. If you're in those states, you should probably take measures to reduce the COVID outbreak. If you're not in those states, the best thing you can do for your country is to resume life as normal, to go back to regular life so that people aren't killing themselves with handguns, because white people have 88% of the guns in the country, and white males have a very bad suicide problem. So we have been stocking up on firearms, and white males have been now are stocked up on firearms, and they are at risk of now committing suicide with these weapons that they see. For each action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. You're like, oh, these white males, scary white males are going to get firearms, and then it might be like a war. Like, nah, dude, probably going to start freaking out about firearms. They're going to be all like lonely and depressed and isolated at their house, and they're going to shoot themselves, dude. That does not sound like a threat at all. That sounds like a threat to them, dude. We need to stop this shit, dude. This next article from the Daily Mail. Andrew Cuomo begs people to return to New York to save the city. Thousands of New York residents have fled Manhattan and Brooklyn earlier this year when the shithole was a COVID epidemic of the world. And I really just think that this just shows you how fucked up the fake news media is, dude. Because like this whole thing with New York, let's go look at the graph. The NBC News got the COVID graph popped up with the autocomplete. Here's New York. Here's the hotbed. And we'll see it's a nice Gaussian curve. This Gaussian curve has been updated August 6th. And as you can see, there's no COVID problem in New York. The reason for that is because the pandemic's over there. And so when you say there's everybody around the country needs to take measures to stop a COVID pandemic, this is a lie. The pandemic is over. We are now in normal territory where the states have gone back to normal in their Gaussian curve. And then California's still up. But as we can see, it's been going down, and the fake news media has been saying that Donald Trump is lying because he's been talking about the curves going down. But as you can see, as of the last updating here in California, the data is still trending down. Looks like a Gaussian curve to me. Pennsylvania, pretty much over there. Illinois, pretty much over. Yeah, there's a little bit of it in Illinois, but not really like a problem. Florida, it's not a problem because these people who are dying are probably going to die from something else. They got the flu 2 weeks later, they die from the flu. How are you going to say that's a COVID death, dude? That's just called real life, dude. It's like they've eliminated dying of old age. Nobody dies from old age anymore. They all die from COVID. Oh, no. He had a cold recently, so that means he died from the cold. Oh, really? Really? The 85-year-old person died from COVID. Okay. Now, if it was a 40-year-old person and they died from COVID, I would say, yes, that person died from COVID. If it was a 99-year-old person, or like, hold on, Stephen Miller's grandmother, the Donald Trump's guy that people say is the white supremacist, white nationalist, he's not. It's a lie. That guy, his grandma was 97. We covered that on the show. It was one of the lead articles. If you want to go look back, one of the Real Simple News with Coffee. And it's like she was 97 years old. She had COVID 2 months before she died. And they say she died of COVID because she tested positive for COVID antibodies. This is the problem. All of this stuff related to COVID is like highly politicized. You can't trust pretty much almost anything but the actual, you can't, like the death count. You can't even trust the death count. Cause like, look at the death count. You're like, okay, well the people 75 to 84, it was like 26% of them, right? Like, okay, what's the average lifespan of an American? (2010), okay, 78.7. So look, let's just say, look, well, oh, well, what kind of fake news did we just uncover here? Well, let's look at this. Ooh. So they're saying everybody 75 years and above died from COVID. Let's add them up. Let's just drop that one down. Okay, let's take this, divide it by 2. I'm gonna take 14,000 from the 75 to 85 crowd and 435. Oh, what is this? What do I see here? Well, I'll be. That's 46%. 46% of the COVID deaths are over the average age of death in America. So, what does this tell you? This tells you this old person was going to die if they got the flu, if they got COVID, if they got pneumonia, anything. That person's going to kick the fucking bucket, dude. The news is so fake. It's red hot. I mean, that's sizzling hot fake news, dude. To say that 50% of these deaths, no, 46% of these deaths, let's say 47%, about half of these deaths are from people that were going to die very soon anyways. This is why you can't trust absolutely anything from most news sources. They're run by complete brainwashed leftist drones who might even be brainwashed by Xi Jinping, the dictator of China who looks like Winnie the Pooh. In this next article from Inc.com, one study showed that having an abundance mindset raises your IQ by 13 points. And if you're interested, I run the A startup, so I have a lot of experience with this. This is actually only the first level here. The abundance mindset is the mindset that you can have when you don't look at things as being limited. This mindset at first gives you a 13% increase, but what they are saying here is not actually true. It's only temporal because there is actually an evolution beyond the abundance mindset. So the abundance mindset is the opposite of the scarcity mindset. And the reason why the abundance mindset is better is because if you have a scarcity mindset, you will not try new things. This only goes so far, though. I've experienced this firsthand. When you're in the abundance mindset and you're in engineering land, you are fixing for a bruising, dude. You are just like, I'll just do this and this. I'll do whatever I want. Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, I have infinite time. No, you don't. Totally don't have infinite time there, buddy. There is the next evolution beyond the scarcity mindset is the constraint mindset. And this is where you want to be. Trust me, this is where the fun is at. You've never experienced life until you've actually gotten to the constraint mindset. Because when you try to go into this whole abundance mindset, you are going to go on rabbit trails. You're going to want to do stuff that you just want to do. You need to start looking at things in the manner of constraints. So first, you need to open your mind. They're correct in this article. It's just short-sighted. Just shows you the people who write these things aren't necessarily very good entrepreneurs. The constraint mindset is where you are familiar with the abundances and you've had enough of the abundance to where you are trying to make money now. You're like, okay, I've been doing this enough. My time is not abundant, not in any way, shape, or form. Hence why the last episode, I had the date wrong because I was going to change the show to the next day because it was getting late. I was tired. And then I was like, all right, I'm already up. I'm already ready to go. Let's go. But I didn't update the date. So I need to have extra staff members. And if you do actually want to donate to the show, you can make a donation at realsimplenews.net/issue61. Down there at the bottom, you can click on the issue ticket on GitHub if you want to contribute any sort of fact corrections or comments, knowledge contributions. You can also make a donation here on PayPal. It goes to Kabuki Starship, which is the open source organization that sponsors everything this through my slave labor. I am not getting paid. I am not a shill. This is all open source. I am just a geek. But what about that? Okay, so the constraint mindset, when you build machines, you slowly start to realize that you can't make a perfect machine. I've tried to make the perfect text processor, the serial Chinese room interprocess and telemetry protocol specification and related technologies. Chinese room. It was supposed to be the God code that can scan all code. It was going to be the state machine that can parse all state machines. It could do everything. It was perfect. I wrote the world's fastest number printing out. Well, it's world's fastest integer algorithm. But in order to print a floating point number, you have to also deal with the integer thing. So I optimized all number printing algorithms. And so I've got one of the fastest string printing libraries. And so I was trying to make everything conceptually perfect. And the amount of time that it took to do that was insane. It was insane. It made me cry, break down. Eventually, I figured out some very hyper-sophisticated method of building applications and testing that is now slowly starting to become an industry standard. Very easy to inject test data. Seems just... zzz. But eventually, you're like, okay, well, I put in the kitchen sink, made it perfect, everything, but then it took so much time and nobody's paying me any money. So obviously you can see that when you do a cost benefit analysis, you see the cost of it was very high and the amount of benefit that I received from it was very low. So this is an example of why the abundance mindset can be a very bad thing. It can actually be detrimental to your business. But so this is when you start to work with the constraint mindset. This is primarily, okay, I also went overboard on my MIDI controllers and my lighting controllers. And eventually I just figured out I just don't have the time. Eventually I have to maintain all this stuff. And so it's kind of like you get to the point with your house where you're like, I just want to get rid of all my possessions and only have the things that are really actually important to me. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'd rather do this show with you people, helping pull the wool over from people's eyes. Not over, sorry. Pulling it from your eyes. It's been put there by Democrats. These Democrats are primarily from big cities. They're hella shady as fuck. They're led by ivory tower liberals and white feminists. They have enforcers called hood Democrats and Antifa Nazis who will come and beat you up. They might stab you and shoot you. So I'd rather teach you about that, the matrix that you've been put into from the fake news industrial complex. But I can't do that unless I have the constraint mindset. So my other projects, we have WikiSpy. The MIDI and lighting controllers haven't really touched too much. I need some people to help. I got some dope shit. I got my own sound card. But I need some really technical C++ help. And then you've got the AI software, and then I've the WikiSpy fits in with everything because it's like a search engine. And so you can start to see immediately, you're like, okay, well, the time is out. You're out of time. These are a lot of very big projects. These are very complicated. You need doctors. Where are the doctors at? So, you got to work on the constraint. And this is where the beauty starts to come in. This is where it's like, okay, well, it's got to work for me. Like, I ain't trying to work for y'all. Like, y'all ain't paying me. This is for me. What do I want to live with rest of my life? What do I want to have to deal with? Everything's got problems. Everything's got none of the systems were like absolutely perfect, and nor would you want them to be perfect. It's supposed to be a solution for that time. A good example of this mindset I'm talking about is that you're trying to put together a product out of the bargain bin, that out of just a whole bunch of random shit that was like overstock. All right. So I've been engaging in this to put the studio together, trying to get through all the overstocked merchandise on Amazon and wherever else, the discount cameras, all the different used connectors. There's a bazillion of them. So these are constraints where it's like, okay, I only have so much money. I want to put together a product. I want to sell it. So I got this bin of stuff that's cheap. This is the stuff that like I have to work with, and I'm going to create something that's like really cool out of it. So I just need to do something for me. This ain't for y'all. It's like I'm making some sort of like a party costume for myself or a decoration. Like this is my life. When you look back, you're like, you think of Kale. This is what you think of Kale. This is what I'm building out of my thing. This is the ultimate evolution of the constraint mindset, where you can slowly start to build the life that you want to live. But the abundance mindset will send you the wrong way. So if you want to contribute, there's the A Startup Cookbook. I have a channel. It's been dormant, but I do have a book, and it is open source. You can contribute to it. This next article from Newsweek: stimulus checks deal and negotiations, Pelosi refusal to budget on $3.4 trillion. Wow. Draws criticism from Democrats, or from Democrat. No S on there. As negotiations in Congress continue, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi refuses to settle for anything less than $3.4 trillion in the next stimulus bill, but even fellow Democrat senior Joe Manchin said that might be a little bit more than we have an appetite for. I would definitely agree. I spent my money on cameras, although I'm helping Uncle Sam, like, I mean, I'm going to go buy some more cameras, so I'm going to like boost the show. So yeah, you're stimulating the economy, but most people, a lot of people are just going to spend it on drugs. Money's going to go overseas. If you give it to illegal immigrants, please note they are not just undocumented immigrants. An undocumented immigrant would be somebody from DACA. Everybody else is an illegal immigrant. When you do that, they send the money back to where they came from. So you're not stimulating our economy. 56% of illegal immigrants are from Mexico. That's 1 in 20 Mexicans here illegally. There's 11 Mexicans here illegally for every homeless person on the street. That's crazy. So money to that group of people would just go back. Portion would go back to Mexico. That would not be stimulating our economy. It would be stimulating Mexico's economy. But they want to give away billions of dollars to illegal immigrants so they can get the Latinos to vote for them. I think that's a detestable thing. I love Mexicans. If you know any single Latinas, I am single. Totally down to hook up. But what they want to do is they just want to give money away to get people to vote for him. What Joe Biden wants to do, he wants to give away a whole bunch of money to leftist STEM groups. So he wants to give it to, say, 86% of scientists are Democrats. So he wants to give his money to like green tech and AI. And I personally own a green tech company. I make one of the world's most efficient water heaters called an Oregon Cooler. It extracts CO2 using a biomimicry process, mimicking lungs of a cold-blooded animal. And I also own an AI company. So I make AI-assisted productivity and memory augmentation technologies, viral video app. So I would be potentially in the future at some point in time, maybe be a beneficiary of this. But as of right now, I would not. So he's giving away money to his buddies out in the STEM industry that canceled me so that they'll vote for him. That's Joe Biden. That's because that's how the Democrats operate. They don't actually have any good plans. Their plans are to take money from people who earned it and give it to people who hate them in order to get them to vote for them. Oh, I might add, they hate the politicians and they didn't earn the money too. That's an important qualifier there. And what's the problem with just giving away people's money? It's just like the capitalist farm that was very productive under capitalism, where you gave it to socialist people who demanded that the people be in control because it was not fair. The capitalist was making so much money, and the socialists did not know how to run a farm. They had no experience doing so, and the farm became very unproductive. And next thing you know, you had 3-mile long lines for bread, and when you got there, there was no bread. This is the repeating story in communism. It happens over and over and over again. And once they start running out of food, then they start fighting. So I'm a little bit confused exactly what we're trying to do. I think we need to be more targeted of bringing stuff back home from China. I think instead of just giving the money to people, we need to give it to people who are going to employ people, because if we're just subsidizing a work gap, it doesn't sound like you're going to end up with less money. It sounds like you're going to end up with less money in the end, because in order for the dollar to be worth anything, you have to work. You have to generate something in the economy. You have to trade it, and then you have to have some sort of way that you can evaluate how much that trade is worth. And these things are very tricky. They're very complicated. A dollar is not worth a dollar everywhere. You can try to buy a soda. Just go around town and try to buy a soda from everybody in town, and you will see the price of the soda is actually different a lot of places that you go. And so it's a little bit hard to say exactly how much money is worth, but we can say if you're not working and you're not generating any money for the economy, that dollar is not worth as much money. So I'm a little bit wary about handing out money without a work requirement with that money attached to it, because as much as I benefited and as much as this camera looks absolutely lovely, I feel blessed. The room is gorgeous. I feel this table is wonderful. This American flag is so beautiful. I feel very humble to be able to have this microphone, even though there are very few viewers. I am making these videos for people in the future, so when they look back at the 2020 Democrat race riots, they'll see this is what the person in Eugene who helped start the 2016 Portland protest now thinks of the Democrats after this whole thing. And at that point in time, you know, what are we just giving them money for? How are we generating the money in the economy? Is this going to restart the economy? Am I going to take the money and try to invest in some business that's going to go belly up? Everybody's going to hate me and I can't get a job for the rest of my life. And then your stimulus money then fucked me over. Probably not, because I was before the stimulus, I was also too using just cheaper cameras, but now we just have dope cameras. But I don't know. It could be good. I'm not going to say I know enough about that. Might be awesome. Might be the best thing we could do. In this next article from the Daily Mail, Yale University student sues the public school in potential class action for tuition to be refunded. Jonathan Michael from Woolley, Ohio, said Yale effectively breached or terminated the contract it had with a student who paid to participate in the elite school. And if you're unfamiliar, these Ivy League schools have been canceling classes and not returning the tuition for them. That is insane. I mean, I've gone to school for 12 or 13 years in college. And let me see, 2016, 2001, minus some number of years, about 12 years or so. And they always gave me the money back. This to me is just bizarre, that the amount of money that they paid is insane. And then you just don't get it back. These colleges are bullshit, man. I'm sorry. It's whack. I went to Portland State University because they were not an Ivy League school, because they had a lower GPA requirement. My GPA was not so good. I wrote the world's fastest number algorithm, number printing algorithm there, fastest pointer alignment algorithm there. And then I went on and I moved on to making one of the world's most efficient, if not the world's most efficient water heater, sequesters CO2 through a biomimic breathing process. I also am working on groundbreaking pen and paper human-computer interaction technologies with memory augmentation and fact-checking knowledge through the WikiSpy fact-checking service. It's going to integrate with Wikipedia by putting Wikipedia into the RAM on your computer and the neural nets on your graphics card when they're unused, using an infinite cache, using very advanced technologies. So Portland State University has a lot of groundbreaking technologies. Like we are definitely, we can, if it was a fight, we'd be exchanging blows, but the other school has had, if you look at the dollars invested, the newtons per punch is going to be per dollar is going to be, we're probably actually going to be stronger than them. We also, too, work with NASA at Portland University, have a drop tower there that regularly communicates with the International Space Station. It's the largest one west of the Mississippi. So I think that these Ivy League schools are bullshit, to be quite honest. I think the technologies that I've seen come out of Portland State Universities and through other schools, this is just one example. I'm not saying we're the best. I'm saying everybody is also the best. If you look at the history of computer science, it is not controlled by the Ivy League. There are people who are brilliant who then move to the Ivy League. There are some brilliant people from the Ivy League, but it's very distributed. It's actually, there's genius all around. These people are so smart. Problem is, they're so smart, they will brainwash themselves, radicalize themselves when they look at data through a skewed lens. When almost everyone is a Democrat around them, they're going to think that everyone thinks like that, and then they're going to look at all of their data through a lens of maintaining their dominance in the power structure, because that's how you have to do it. When you have a minority of people who are engaging in a heterodoxy groupthink echo chamber, that becomes an authoritarian power structure. It becomes like the laws of power. Forget which one it is. There's like 2 or 3 of them, actually. But they have these power structures. They enforce them very draconianly. When you look at the laws of power, the people who are in these leftist universities use most of these laws instinctively without doing it. Like, for example, at Portland State University, the chairman of the computer engineering department, his name is, what is his name? Can't remember his name. Maybe I shouldn't call him out because he is a wonderful person, but he speaks in this tone of voice where he's like, he'll speak like this in a tone of voice that is soft, but he's carrying a big stick, and when he speaks, he tells you the truth, because when he does it, he speaks softly. And really, honestly, I think he's full of shit. I think he has owned enough businesses to where he knows how to exploit the power structure, and the way that he speaks is in a manipulative tone of voice. He doesn't see it like that. He sees it as, I've been in enough debates with world-class engineers and scientists that I know to speak humbly. That's how he is able to get his message out, is through his behavior. But you have to understand that when people violate this, they get very angry. They get to be the petty, vindictive master. They will come and lay the smackdown on you. They'll lay the smackdown on you. Like, they'll hit you hard, dude. They're like some of the most authoritarian people there. And in some regards, maybe you require that because they need the bottom dollar when they're paying you to do these technologies and they're paying you all this money. You can't just fuck around and not get the work done. You do have a schedule. It's engineering. Most of engineering is staying on the schedule, in which case I'm not the best at that. I'm more of a creative person and a coder. But I get in trouble with these people at these universities. So what am I trying to say? Portland has a badass economy. We have Intel there. Intel, I regularly worked with Intel people at Portland State University. But I could not take their power structure. I just couldn't. I am the person who instinctively will. I'm not a rebel without a cause, but I call out shit. I don't know. I just can't help it. It's like a part of me that, like, when I see that something is not right, I'm the person who embarrasses the person they're with by speaking out against it. And it's oftentimes very not popular. I've learned to pick my battles since, had some incidences where, hasn't been the best. But overall, I think that I've generally, when I was a leftist, I think that I was not fighting on the correct side. Not at all. I fought very hard, but these universities are controlled by these people, these leftists that engage in this power structure dynamic in the STEM industry. And what does this have to do about Yale? Portland would whoop their ass, dude. If it really came down to it, I would tap them out, dude. Me or Yale, who can make a better memory augmentation technology? All right. My competing solution is IMU language with WikiSpy, with AI flashcards, and voice recognition technology that can utilize your handwritten notes in order to bring up AI flashcards and automate different tasks such as communications, tweets, creation of YouTube videos, thumbnails for your YouTube video. Just automatically describe what you want for the thumbnail, and then it just pops up. It's my solution because it allows you to utilize the when you write on paper, there's a different neurological interface where you are able to utilize the motion of your hand as you write, along with different characteristics of your writing that can be indicative of certain things such as your stress level or energy levels. You can take all of these factors and you can, by allowing you to control a to-do list with your notes, this allows you to augment your memory by showing you the notes that you wrote as flashcards. So when you see these notes as flashcards, you wrote it. It's a pattern in your hand. You were able to see from the handwriting. You were able to pick up certain indications about what happened. And so this allows you to, through my Chinese room technology, allows you to utilize a mimicked room, an office room, in order to store data spatially in easily conceptual places that you can see in your room. And this then becomes an artificial memory device through a Chinese room algorithm. Basically, it's the location of the data in the room, and it allows you to be able to store other metadata about the object. So that's my solution. I would like to see what Yale's solution is. If you would like to comment about your solution, I would love to hear about it. That would be awesome. I think you should come check out Portland State University. This is issue number 61, github.com/Real Simple News. Just click on Real Simple News. You can find the closed out issue 61. I know you can. This next article from Fake Newsweek. Child chokes on mask found in McDonald's chicken nuggets. Mom claims it's probably not fake. Newsweek is fake on political things that can be led to opinion or data that you can misinterpret through a lens. Laura Arbor purchased her food from a New Hampshire restaurant. She said she discovered sections of a blue mask inside of some of the chicken nuggets after her daughter began choking. Ooh, do we have pictures? Pictures or it didn't happen, right? Do you have anything? I don't see any pictures. I don't know. We call it Fake News Week. Not going to say it didn't happen. That was it. Thank you very much for watching Real Simple News. Today is technically August 6th, but I have to do 2 shows today because yesterday got messed up. So thank you for watching. Again, my name is Cale McCullough, captain of the Kabuki Starship. And until next time, farewell, sayonara, peace be with you, and Godspeed in your journeys, friend.